Here, and first, let's kind of define what we're talking about, because some of these are egregious, like groping, locking people in, an office with you. But it doesn't have to be that.
No, and those are extreme cases, and those are typically also cases of people with extreme power to believe they can get away with it. Most of the time, in most of our worlds, we have people who are being treated differently or harassed, if you will, based on how they look or what things they've said. But the truth is it's very common, and it's been happening since men and women have worked together.
Sure. But, well, and we should talk about that too. It's not just men. Women can be
absolutely
the aggressors as well.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So let's talk about what constitutes harassment, because if it's just, oh, I love that dress on you, is that harassment? Tell me where kind of the line is, because I think people are kind of wondering, am I guilty of this?
Right. It's a great question. In fact, in some of the trainings I do, I use that example completely all the time. That's a wonderful dress you're wearing. That's a compliment. Wow, that dress looks great on you is a whole different connotation. So is even just saying in that very inflection way harassment? No. But if it's continuous, and it's the eyes, and it's the behaviors, and worse, if you've asked me to stop and I continue to do it, that is truly when it becomes continuous, pervasive, and you have a case where you should go to HR and say, I'm very uncomfortable with what is happening. Is that necessarily enough illegal to go to the courts? Who knows? But at this point, it most likely is against your company policy.
Okay, because you were saying there was a difference between the law and what your company will tolerate. So how do you know what you're doing is appropriate or that you're kind of on the borderline? How do you know, or do you?
Everyone has their own threshold of what they think is appropriate, what they don't think is appropriate, what they think is kidding, and what, oh, come on, I'm just joking.
Right.
The truth is again, when I go back to my trainings, I tell people, if you're not going to do this in front of your children, your pastor, your spouse, your significant other, then most likely, probably shouldn't be doing it at work.
Right. Better to err on the side of caution.
Absolutely.
Now, do you think also that the people we've been seeing, because it seems like, oh my gosh, every day, multiple people. Yes. Do you think that people don't understand that they're harassing people, or they know and are just trying to keep it hidden because they're in such power, places of power?
The ones we're seeing now, of course, are very public figures. They're in the public. They will be using their power. They have chosen to do that, and to the advantage of it, they think they're untouchable.
And then what do we do about, if you do believe that this is happening to you? I guess probably the number one thing is don't look to yourself. Like, what did I do?
Many people do that. Many people do that, and regretfully, it prevents and enables the harasser to continue. So what you need to do is elevate, and hopefully you have that good relationship with either a manager or your human resources department, but it has to come from top down. It has to be a culture. But for employers, your first line of defense is always training, and then also having a very good policy. But you have to live the policy. You can't just look at the policy and never look at it again and not be part of the culture. That comes from top down.
And then one last question before we go. Is there like a statute of limitations? Because a lot of these women have been silent for so long, and they're coming forward years, decades after.
Yes. Well, it depends. There is federal, then there is state, and those vary. The point is when for the EEOC, if you're a large enough company, you usually have the 180 days to come forward and make a claim. But in Arizona, for Arizona civil rights, it can even go even farther. But the truth is there's strength in numbers. And so once one woman has come forward, another will feel, okay, that happened to me too. Wow, she's strong. I'm going to do this too now, because it's wrong what happened to me. And I encourage women to do that. I encourage them to be the one to come forward first, or men.
Or the men,
or men.
Whomever.
Because it is just, every person has the legal right to go to work every day being in a harassment-free environment.
Thanks so much for kind of giving us the ins and outs, because it's obviously a very complicated subject there.